Here's what I want to caution you about and caution everybody else is that one of the things that I want people to understand is that I'm praying that we are going into an age where we don't have to supersize our courses anymore, and that we actually start to pare them down, because you'll notice that when you start to add custom GPTs in, you're taking other things out because they do so much of the heavy lifting.
Absolutely.
And instead of thinking like my course is feeling stagnant or enrollments are stagnant or what can I do to make this better, instead of thinking I'm going to add more lessons, I'm going to add more calls, I'm going to add more workshops, you're putting time on people's calendars. And we need to stop forcing people to spend more time, but we need to not put more time on their plate. And that's what we've been doing every time we add more. A custom GPT, you add it in, but it reduces their time because it gets them again to the finish line faster. And that's what I'm really hoping that I can help people understand as they're building custom GPTs is you get to save people time. That's the most valuable resource that you can give people.
Hey everyone, it's Mariana Henninger. Welcome back to Empire Secrets. Boy, am I excited for our chat today. And funny that I use the word chat. Is all about using custom GPTs inside of ChatGPT. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, we'll do a brief intro. Hopefully you know about at least ChatGPT. You might not have understood the freaking power in creating your own custom GPT. I'm tingling with excitement because this week I launched 2 custom GPTs for my students and they are blown away. I love getting my own results from them. They are loving working with them to get their own results, to move things faster. You guys, the entire online course world is going to have a big change. If you are not embracing AI right now, you are going to be in sort of the back of the train, and there's no reason for you to get left behind. This is the thing you need to capitalize on while it's still fresh, and it blows my mind. Let's just dive right in. And why the heck are you the only person that I know, besides me, who is talking about custom GPTs for course creators?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you would say that because I feel like I'm surrounded by people that are also doing this. And you're like, nobody's doing this. But honestly,
not in my world. Like, they're not reaching me. And I'm like,
I'm telling you, this is such a big missed opportunity for people. It is such a big missed opportunity.
Let's just rename that real quick. If you're listening to Empire Secrets, you're not missing out on the opportunity. You are in the right place to learn about it. And by the way, the reason I say that you're the only person, for some reason in my channels, people are not talking about this. I have been going into multiple course creator groups that I'm in. Who else is creating a custom GPT for their course? Crickets. And I'm talking people who have made multi 6 figures with their courses. So you are probably in more advanced circles or circles where people are like tapped into how powerful this is. We're going to talk about how powerful it is. Maybe we'll start there actually. So Wendy, somebody who is not super AI friendly, somebody who's like, I know a little bit about ChatGPT, or maybe they're using ChatGPT a ton but have not explored custom GPTs. What the heck is a custom GPT? I will let you answer that. And why should they be using it for their course, for their program?
Yeah, so about a year ago, maybe like middle of last year, end of last year, ChatGPT, owned by OpenAI, which most of us have either explored or have heard about or are using, rolled out what they call custom GPTs. There was a precursor to it called custom instructions. And then they rolled out custom GPTs. And how I like to think about everything in the marketing and business management world is simplicity and making it as uncomplicated as possible. Like simple and uncomplicated always win. And so when they launched custom GPTs last year, it's kind of, if you think about it, it's a build once, use on repeat tool that's built into ChatGPT. So basically, in a nutshell, a custom GPT is like a version of ChatGPT that already has a set of instructions, a set of prompts, and a set of details behind it. It already knows what it's going to get from the user and what it's going to output for the user. And so it eliminates all that, quote, prompt engineering that we always hear people talking about, and that you need to be like a rocket scientist or a magician to write these mega prompts. But you really don't. If you can learn how to, and it's not hard, to build a custom GPT that does something that you usually ask ChatGPT to do on repeat, but always feel like you're starting from scratch. A custom GPT can do that for you.
Right. And I think that ChatGPT has evolved in the sense that we used to have to repeat ourselves a lot. If you started a new thread, like forget about it. You have to teach everything to it again. Now I'm noticing I'm on a different thread. I'm like brand videos, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, I already know what you're going to talk about, and anyway. So obviously the ChatGPT sort of regular tool side of things has progressed from where it was a few months ago. But the power of the custom GPT to me, and it's funny, it never occurred to me until you described it in this way, that it's almost a way for it to prompt you so that it can give you faster results. And that's not to say it's going to give you a lot of work, by the way. It's not to say it's going to make things more complicated. It's quite the opposite. But it will ask you essentially the way that I see it. And so I would love to give you the way that I look at custom GPTs, and I'd love for you to critique it and say like, well, Mariana, you're not considering this set. Anyway, tell me what you think. I feel like a custom GPT is a way to create the brain power within ChatGPT that's going to help you get results faster. So the end goal is that, to your point, instead of having to create these prompts from scratch that are super elaborate, that are like maybe a page long sometimes, I've definitely come across prompts that are like a whole book. It is built knowing a bunch of stuff already, so that all you have to do is kind of direct it. And when, at least the way that I've created my custom GPTs, I'm prompting my students with the specific things about their business and about their audience and about their reality. And just give me a little bit to work with here so that I can use that brain power that I've put into it to create the output much faster. This is how I look at it. Obviously, it's not like a buttoned up definition, but how do you react to
Really
that?
good. I mean, that's a great definition, first of all, because there's a lot of different ways and use cases for custom GPT. So, for instance, you can build a custom GPT that helps your clients take a journey, that asks them questions, that basically records their answers in one chat and then can synthesize it or bring it all together for them. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is I always like to think of a custom GPT, especially as it relates to a course creator or a program creator building it into their offers for their clients. The idea is that you want the custom GPT to help your clients get results faster. And so however you decide to do that and to build the custom GPT, that is okay. How I like to do it is typically what I'll do is I have them like fill out something like a little workbook and then copy and paste that information into. And I think that that's a really great way to think about integrating custom GPTs into your offers. And there's not one way to do it, right? You can do it a dozen different ways, but oftentimes I like to think about if you're a program creator or a course creator or a coach, the idea is to save your clients and students time,
Yes.
right? And
Oh,
so
yes.
if that's the end goal that we want to use custom GPTs for, we want to bridge the gap between the learning piece of what we're trying to teach them and the implementation or the doing piece, right? And so the custom GPT kind of acts as that bridge. I like to think of it as like that analogy of the fish analogy. If you hand somebody the fish, they eat for an evening. If you teach them to fish, they eat forever. But the problem is that most people don't have the time to learn
To
how to
learn how
fish.
to fish. Yes,
Yeah.
such a good
And
analogy.
so basically the custom GPT is like the fishing rod. So if you think about it between you teach them some of your stuff, but you can't knowledge transfer your years of expertise to somebody. That's
Yeah.
not realistic. And we've all, honestly, we've all tried to do that by shoving too much stuff into our programs and courses. So if you think about how can I make it quicker to get them from point A, the learning, to point B, the doing, the custom GPT can fill that gap for you. It is that fishing rod. You hand them the fishing rod. It's equipped to help them cast off and catch the fish themselves. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I like to think about it. I'm all about this concept, again, of this simplicity and uncomplication. And so I think custom GPTs, when built properly, can really like fill that gap.
Oh, so cool. I feel like I have 50 questions to follow up with that. And
Hit me.
I loved your analogy. It makes so much sense to me. I think I'm curious whether you've started collecting data about course completion since the folks that you've worked with have installed custom GPTs into their programs. Like that would be a fascinating data point, right? Which, by the way, is probably a high number. I can't remember what the average is. The average is very low for online courses. So the idea that people are completing their courses a lot faster and a lot higher completion rate would be an amazing data point.
Let's talk about course completion, because typically everybody says like only 10 to 15% of people will complete your course, right? But we don't necessarily need people to complete our course in order for them to see
Get results.
success.
For sure.
Our offer has a promised result. And if the custom GPTs positioned like strategically in your program get them to that like utopia that they want, that promised result quicker. But I don't think it's realistic in today's day and age, especially with so much stuff that we've added and supersized our courses and programs, to measure, has everybody watched every single thing? Is that what we really want them to do? Or do we just really want them to get results and feel successful?
Whatever that looks like. Yeah.
Let me just say this. Is the number going up? I'm actually like working with my clients to see, are their clients talking about the custom GPTs? Are they having more wins in their community channel because they're able to get the results that they want quicker? And it's really all about them. It's not really about us, what we want them to get. Like we want them to get what we want, what they need out of our offer.
That's really cool. I think I speak from really personal, my course, creating a brand video, you can't actually get the result, like the desired result, until you finish it. If you are getting some success, even if you're picking and choosing the modules, or essentially getting what you need in order to get the result. It might not look like course completion, right? But I do feel like my program's a little bit different. So I tell them the one flaw of the brand video is that it doesn't work for you until you've completed it and published it and shared it. So we need to complete this. We need to get to the finish line. But you're absolutely right. That's not the case for every course. Ideally, or what we should be looking at is, how are people using this tool? What kind of amazing results are they getting as a result of using that tool? Are they even more excited to stay in and to keep doing and to keep interacting? Which I love, looking at subjective data, sometimes even more than objective, numbers. Let's talk about some of the ways that people are using custom GPTs. Let's get some examples of what folks that you've worked with are using them for, and what does accelerating results look like? But Wendy, I also want you to talk about the different types of custom GPTs. So I attended your training a few days ago, and I thought that was so brilliant the way you kind of classified them, because it helps us understand, what do we want this tool to do? Which I'm guessing is kind of the first question you ask when you even start thinking about a custom GPT, right?
Yeah. And I will say that, let's talk about those three types that I like people to kind of focus in on, which I thought was so good, is how do I think about the first type of custom GPTs that I recommend, which are those foundational custom GPTs, those GPTs that you build into your program and offer, that really, that's the core thing that you teach, right? It's built on your core frameworks and methodologies and IP, right? So the first type of GPT I always encourage people to build is a foundational GPT. And again, that is built on that core framework. And what I love about custom GPTs is that you build your brain into them. So they become an extension of the coach. They don't replace the coach. And that's really important to consider when you start to think about, like, well, my clients want me and only me. No, your clients come to you for the results that you promise, right? And so I love when people build a foundational GPT. A lot of my clients come to me and they're like, I want to build a custom GPT for this template. And that's really great. But oftentimes people don't know what to put into a template. And so a foundational GPT built first helps them kind of flesh out a lot of information that then they can move on to an add-on GPT, which is that next type that I like to talk to people about. You take the information from a foundational GPT, you add it into the add-on GPT, you're off to the races. So those are two types of custom GPTs that I help people create. Oftentimes those two are very connected in a course. You can also build a third type, which is a standalone custom GPT. Those are great for like lead magnets or low ticket offers or something in your course that maybe isn't like tightly connected to, but still
Sure.
you really want them to do it. So like you built, tell us what kind of custom GPTs you built, and then I can kind of like work from there and fill in the gaps and maybe make some recommendations for others.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Yes. So the first two that I've built are not the most important ones. In fact, as you were describing foundational again, which I had a hard time grasping, I'm not sure why, built are foundational, even though they were the first ones I built. In part, I built them first because of the cohort that I'm in my brand video accelerator program right now. This is where folks are. And so like, I want to build these first because then they can use them right away for this moment where they are right now in our process. And so the first one I'm calling the Audience Deep Dive GPT, which basically creates a detailed persona with psychographic points of who their ideal client is. And so that's the first one. The second one plays off of that first one. So what you just described is what we're doing, in that you take the data from the first one and you put it into the Audience Voice GPT, which is that second one I created. And that helps you, and it basically generates quotes for you based on that persona. This is what she says about these different psychographic points that we've outlined: the pains, the desires, the frustrations, the things she likes to do, the things she likes to spend her money on, her values, all of that. So those are the two that are out into the universe of my students right now and that they're playing with, which, by the way, I always caveat, especially these two, by saying that the most important data that you get is from your customer directly. Like, don't stop talking to them. Like, we absolutely do customer calls. There's a very specific way that I teach my students to do them. But this obviously helps in a way. It kind of brings to light other things that they know is true, but they hadn't like brought to the forefront. Those are the two GPTs I'm working with right now. Dr. Wendy, what do you think about those two, and where do you classify them?
Well, the first one is definitely probably foundational, even though it might not be built on some sort of core curriculum that you teach. But until they get that information that your foundational
That's true.
GPT puts out, they can't move forward.
That's
They
true.
can't create that brand video unless they know who they're talking to, right? And
Yes.
so that's really important. And that's actually a custom GPT. Whether I work with my clients and I do done for you GPTs for them, or they come into my group program, typically that is usually the first type of custom GPT we build, is one that really deep dives into their ideal clients' desires, pains, that helps them then flesh out like their unique messaging angles, things of that nature. That voice of customer
Yeah.
information that you were talking about just now when you said quotes. When you can get the custom GPTs to give you voice of customer information, like what are your
That's
clients
gold.
really
Yeah.
thinking about in the middle of the night when they wake up, right? And it's really good at doing that. From there, then you get to start building other custom GPTs that can take that detailed information and write social media posts, social media
Yeah.
calendars, offer generators, right? Anything like that, but that core information is so vital to what's going on. I've
Right.
created profit calculators for my clients, different types of GPTs that help people create like a higher ticket offer. Because a lot of it, our clients, especially in different niches, they don't know how to price their value. So they've underpriced their value. And
Yeah.
specifically in one of my clients, she found that all of her clients were underpricing their expertise. And so we made them a profit calculator and then taught them how to use another GPT to give them ideas on what they could offer to increase the value and create a VIP offer.
So interesting to me because I mean it's almost a whole separate conversation about what happens to coaches whose specialty is offer creation, whose specialty is pricing. And I always think about that too in regards to the brand video. Like, is there a world where my entire course is just a series of GPTs and then I'm coming in to work together with them on finessing on, and to me that's a world where it's my dream world. And it comes back to the point that you made, which is it's all about how quickly can people get results? How quickly can they get to, in my case, the finish line of my course
Right,
was you need to
exactly.
finish it to get results. But whatever your program looks like, how quickly are people seeing actual impact from working with you, whatever that
Exactly.
looks like,
You
right?
know,
Mhm.
when AI came out, like one of the big myths was, oh my God, it's going to replace me. And you almost just kind of touched on that a little bit. And one of the things I want to say about that is that when you like strategically add these custom GPTs and AI chatbots into your programs and offers, your clients won't need you less. They will want you more because you've helped them get results. That means they're going to buy pretty much anything you put out because they know it's going to get them to the finish line
Right.
faster and you're the coach for them. And the other thing I want to say about that is there a universe where custom GPTs like replace offer coaches and stuff like that? They don't know
Yeah.
the strategy. And
Mhm.
as the coach, as the program creator, as the service-based expert, your your strategy that you build into the custom GPTs is still what's going to set you apart. And that I think is really important to remember is that you're not going to replace yourself. You're actually extending yourself and expanding yourself using these custom GPTs. Because I have this program, it's called the Micro Audio Summit System. And it's like a fast way to have a small summit instead of one of those big mega summits. And so it's fast. And then these custom GPTs came out and I was, dang, I think I can make it faster because
Mhm.
I can give my clients like the 5 templates and let them figure out how to use the Google Doc. Or I can give them a custom GPT that lets them drop their information in
And
and
does it
it
for them.
writes the emails for them.
Yeah.
Expertise has been elevated for them because not
Yeah.
only have I given them strategy to get leads, I've also made it so much faster.
For sure. Oh my gosh, this is so good. And to me, it's especially such an important conversation to have because at the end of the day, if your heart is about serving your customer, of serving the
Mhm.
person who's trusted you with their time, with their money, you should want to do the best thing for them. And I love that you kind of brought this. I hadn't thought about this, but it's absolutely true. It is still the human who is programming this GPT.
Yeah.
As I'm creating my own GPTs, I am putting my own thoughts in there. And like, this is how I look at things. This is how I not just organize the info, but think about the info. And to be able to essentially interact with my brain in a way that is in their universe, right? On their terms, whenever they want. If they want to be doing this at 2 a.m., they can, right?
Mhm.
Like they're not,
Exactly.
they don't have to pay for VIP access to have that answer immediately. And so, not that I am discouraging people for paying, to pay for VIP access. We can work on other stuff, is what I'm trying to say. If I
Exactly.
can make these pieces of our time together go so much faster, in my case, not only will your brand video be completed a lot faster and you will start getting results a lot faster, it's going to be such a more awesome experience. And my expertise is going to be only focused on the things that will make it even more ninja, will like maybe bring it all together. I feel like I'm still figuring out the next GPTs. In fact, like I wanted to ask you about this. I have the other ones kind of mapped out, and you said you might have suggestions for me, which I'm all ears. But the idea that so we've got the two GPTs that are getting people to the point of at this point enriching the data that they have from their audience, from having those conversations in a way that I teach them to have them. My next kind of big GPT that I want to create, I have ideas for probably 10 of them. I kid you
Mhm.
not. But let me skip to another kind of big one, pivotal one, which is their brand story script.
Mhm.
The script of their video is obviously the foundation of their brand video. It takes into account everything they know about their audience. It takes into account this inner sort of personal work, which is going to be a GPT on its own, interacting with my students to get them to understand which parts of the story are important to them, and then we kind of do an intersection of the two things. Anyway, as you can see, there's a lot there. But the brand story script,
Mhm.
or the brand video script, really, that's going to be a big one. And then I'm going to have a GPT that's going to help them, and this is already in development, that's going to help them have ideas for what kinds of emotional visuals to use in their brand video. So I talk about emotional visuals instead of B-roll, and the reason is because visuals are they're a character in your story, and they have to be really intentional to help drive that emotional journey of your story and to create that connection. So what are the visuals that I can film? How can I film this? Which I teach in my course, but if you can come up with if you can use a GPT to help you create a plan to film your brand video that's like step by step, shot by shot, yes, all day. Because I was
100%.
doing that with my students, and I teach that, but they still need help. But if my GPT is thinking like me, is thinking like a cinematographer, understands how to do visual storytelling, and they can quickly interact with them to have that plan, amazing. So that's another GPT. I have other ideas, but yeah, those are the main ones. So what do you think?
I love those. And again, you're going to teach the GPT one time how you, Mariana, think about visual storytelling. And when you teach the custom GPT that, then it imparts that information on whatever the user asks it for. So it's going to take your brain power, your knowledge, your emotional visuals, the way that you think about that versus just like film some B-roll, right? And
Right.
then it's going to infuse that into the outputs that it gives your clients. And that's what's so magical about custom GPTs and that is when they're using these custom GPTs, it is opening the coach up more time to
Yeah.
focus on the human element things that the custom GPTs can't do. And if
Mm-hmm.
you find that like your clients are coming to calls and they're asking the same questions over and over every time you have a cohort, that is taking up time and it's also burning you out as the coach. Here's what I want to caution you about and caution everybody else is that I want people to understand is that I'm praying that we are going into an age where we don't have to supersize our courses anymore
Oh
and
yeah.
that we actually start to pare them down because
Mm-hmm.
you'll notice that when you start to add custom GPTs in, you're taking other things out because they do so much
Yeah.
of the heavy lifting.
Absolutely.
And instead of thinking like, oh, my course is feeling stagnant or enrollments are stagnant or what can I do to make this better? Instead of thinking, I'm going to add more lessons, I'm going to add more calls, I'm going to add more workshops, you're putting time on people's calendars. And we need to stop forcing people to spend more time, but we need to not put more time on their plate. And that's what we've been doing every time we add more. A custom GPT, you add it in, but it reduces their time because it gets
Oh
them
yeah.
again a finish line faster. And that's what I'm really hoping that I can help people understand as they're building custom GPTs is you get to save people time.
Yeah.
That's the most valuable resource that you can give people.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's so good. You know, it reminds me of something that Gary Vee said in a YouTube video somewhere about how important it is to care about your audience's time. He was referring to making sure that you're intentional about what you say and how ninja and straightforward you are about sharing your message, but it applies to everything, right? Your offer, your product should be optimized. It should be unbelievably awesome, so much so that people can't stop talking about it. And the way to do that is to make that experience to getting results as fast as possible, as fun as possible, as enjoyable, as like give them momentum from the get-go. How many courses do we have sitting in our digital shelves? Like we don't need to add any more to those. That you look at them, you're like, okay, this is going to take me 15 hours sitting here to go through this. But when you're creating these awesome like, dopamine boosts because we're getting to the next step faster and we're like being blown away by the results in the interim, like how awesome is that? Anyway, I want to ask you one final question. There's so much more we can talk about, but Wendy, what is like a common mistake? So let's say I'm just going to speak right now to somebody who got our conversation, who understood what we talked about, who's hopefully not lost here. And you're definitely a person I'm going to be sending people to understand it better if they were a little bit lost during our conversation. But somebody who gets it and who's doing this, what are some common mistakes or some things that you were noticing as you work with students that people should avoid as they're thinking about creating GPTs?
That's a really interesting question because they're relatively new and this whole landscape is new. And a lot of it still is trial and error. But the thing you should avoid the most is avoiding it. Like you have to
Oh.
dive in. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're saying like, if you're not an early responder, like I think we're past the point of like, early action takers, right? We're kind of in it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're still putting it off, you need to stop avoiding that because clients need this. If you think to yourself, like, oh, my clients aren't going to be able to use this, my clients aren't going to understand it, you're selling them short, and you're selling yourself short. And there is a way to build them and make it so easy and so, like I said, full of life and exciting and fun that it helps people want to take the next step. But you have to be willing to take that step as well. That's the biggest thing that I see people avoiding is just jumping in and doing it because they think it's going to be hard. They think they're going to have to redo their whole course. They think it's not for them. It is. It's for everybody. AI
It's
is
almost
here.
like
It's
saying
not.
at this point, the internet's not for me, right?
It's like saying mobile phones aren't for me. Yes, they are.
Right.
You
You're
don't
stuck
have a
with
mobile phone?
landlines.
Yeah.
You really want to live that way. But for
Like
those
saying
that are
cars
in it,
aren't for
Wendy,
me.
like when they're in the thick of it, let's say they've gone past that stage. They're like, okay, I'm gonna embrace this. I'm starting to do it, or I'm starting to understand how this works. You can easily go at, like you said, you can go into and create, right? But what are the mistakes that you're seeing people make who are doing this on their own?
Well, first of all, one of the things that you mentioned early on is you noticed that when you're having conversations with ChatGPT, that it's starting to know what you're thinking. It's starting to already know. And that's because your ChatGPT's memory feature is turned on. But as you start to build ChatGPTs and other things for other people, you may want to make sure that it's turned off just in case, like if you're doing work for one of your clients and you're using a custom GPT, you want to make sure that your brand isn't being infused or your conversations you're having about what you want to cook for dinner aren't being infused in the conversations you're doing for others. So that's number one is just make sure that you're like set up properly. The other thing is that oftentimes people build custom GPTs and they don't realize that there's some functionality that you need to add in, some wording that you need to add in to make it harder for hackers and bad actors to steal your content. Because at the end of the day, you're building some of your like unique IP and strategy into these custom GPTs, and you don't want like, bad people to break into them, to hack them and steal your stuff. So I do find that from time to time, people aren't like, they don't know what they don't know about building them. And so it is kind of good to have like a structure that you follow so that you can identify where to troubleshoot. And then the other thing is that sometimes people just think like, oh, it's too generic. And I always say, well, if you can't expect it to be detailed if you don't give it details, right?
That's
And
a really
so there is a testing phase that goes into it, like
Yeah.
everything. And
That's a really
I'm gonna
good point.
encourage
I
people
discovered
to
that.
take their
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And
That's
really
really
focus
good.
on it.
When I was building mine, I think I had this misconception where like, I'm inputting the right things, I'm going to get the right results. And I realized right away, this isn't working like I thought it would. So there is like build in that expectation that it's not necessarily going to be perfect from the get-go. The thing that can get results quickly if you know how to use it. And again, I don't necessarily think GPTs can or actually even should replace the entire course or replace the things that are you teaching about how to look at things, how to think about things. A GPT is not really built to teach that way. But anyway, I don't think that's the functionality that you search for in a GPT first and foremost. People enjoy learning from people, right? I'm gonna let you go ahead and guide folks to your freebie, which is 75 ideas of custom GPTs that people can create. Did I get that right?
It's called 75 plus ways to use custom GPTs to make more money. And basically what it is it's a guidebook, it's a playbook on, first and foremost, why should you do it? And then it gives you, there's like 10 different categories or 11 different categories of different types of custom GPTs that you can build into your programs, into your business, into your, daily life, so that it helps spark your creativity. It helps you kind of think, yeah, that does sound like something that my course could probably need or that my clients could want, or even that I could use for myself when I'm helping other clients. So I always encourage everybody to read through it. It's fun, and my goal with it is to really help people like understand the possibilities.
Very good. And that link will be in the show notes. It's also wendyb.live/75 for those of you who like to listen and type versus look at the show notes and click. It's all good. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. I feel like there are more ChatGPT nerdy chats in our future.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on building your own. That's super exciting.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I will see you on the next episode of Empire Secrets. Bye for now.